Hello and welcome back. I'm Bill Donath of Logan County Genealogical and Historical Society, and this is Civil War Stories number 5, and it is a letter from a fellow in Mount Pulaski to the Lincoln Herald. The letter was printed in the paper on 20th of June 1861, and it's titled Logan County Traitors. Now, keep in mind that Logan County, being in the center of the state, was made up of about half and half of northerners and southerners. So there were people in the county who were southern sympathizers, about half. But there are some Democrats that we've seen Dr. Wimple doing a lot of good work as a Democrat for the Union. So we're about half and half. And he says, Editor's Herald, no one would suppose from the eagerness with which the proclamation of the 15th of April calling for 75,000 volunteers to defend the government from the assaults of rebels and traitors that a single individual possessed of an ordinary amount of common sense and endowed with a decent degree of reasoning power would be found within the precincts of Logan County that would not be willing to extend to his friends and neighbors who responded so willingly to the request of the government his warmest sympathy, and share with him his purse, however low its ebb. But strange as it may appear, some few men, miserly misanthropes, in this county, who have not only no sympathy with the movements of the government, no charity to extend to the volunteers or their needy families, but are so bold as to say in their opinions and judgment, this Southern rebellion is, on the part of the movers, just and due to themselves, that it is in fact the only plan by which they can ensure to themselves their sovereign rights and a proper recognition of the nations of the world. Moreover, that the erection of batteries collecting of troops and munitions of war at Charleston was no more than an act of injustice towards the people of Charleston. If they were afraid that the general government intended to reinforce Fort Sumter, that if they wished to throw off the allegiance they owed the government and assert and acquire their independence, they were justifiable in collecting troops and commencing the war by firing upon Anderson and his men. That the attempt to reinforce Fort Sumter was an act of invasion by the states not warranted by the Constitution. We know a certain lawyer of magnanimous proportions in your town, and a certain farmer near Mount Pulaski of somewhat similar magnitude, who thus labor in a cowardly way, of course, to justify secession and treason. They have been heard repeatedly to express the above opinions and have refused to give anything for the volunteers, alleging as a reason that they had no sympathy whatever with the movement. Now, we would like to have you tell us, Mr. Lawyer, whereabouts you find any authority that bears you out in condemning the government for enforcing the laws. Can you find a clause in the Constitution which grants the right of secession to a state? Can you find anything in the constitutional election of November last that justifies rebellion? You say this war is all wrong. Can you see no wrong in the open rebellion of Southern traitors? What interest have you in the success of the rebellion, in the overthrow of the government, that you refuse to speak for the flag and the Union? Why in this great crisis, when rebels threaten the perpetuity of the greatest, the best, the freest nation in the world, do you still sit in your office reading the very laws, practicing the very laws, making money out of the very laws that you seek to have overthrown and universally disobeyed? Does not your conduct give the lie to your cold-hearted treason? If you believe in rebellion against the supreme law of the land, wherein consists the common sense of enforcing obedience of the minor laws? If it is just for South Carolina to repudiate her debts, how are we to account for the avidity with which you pursue your clients for fees, except we impute it to your unjust disposition? Where, oh where is the sound judgment, the legal wisdom, the extensive acquaintance with law, in saying the government is wrong and putting down rebellion? That the doctrine of secession is true, when the sage who utters the opinion is engaged in the business of practicing the very laws he rebels against for livelihood. Citizens of Logan County, will you throw your business into the hands of a man who believes the laws ought not to be obeyed? And will you entrust your claims with a man who holds to the doctrine that a state has a right to secede and repudiate all her debts? If a citizen of this glorious land of liberty will thus array himself against the country of his birth, the land that has nourished and educated him, protected his home and his property, and given him his freedom of thought and independence of notion, if he has no sympathy for such a government and refuses to contribute a dime to support it or feed the men who defend it, should he receive the confidence and patronage of free men? No. Treason being his theory, let him go to traitors for his pay. Scratch your head, secession attorney, and as this is an age of books, take down one from your shelf and give us the page whereon there is anything, even an implication that justifies rebellion. Does his great explanation of the Constitution place state laws above federal laws? Consult Jefferson. He ought to be a good authority with you. But did he ever even intimate that the minority should rebel against the government because beaten by the majority? True, he said, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness were the dearest rights of man, that to secure these rights governments were instituted among men, that whenever any form of government became destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Now, has there been any attempt by this or any preceding administration to destroy the life, liberty of the South? Not an act of this character has been meditated or committed. Your great-grandfather also said prudence will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for slight and transient causes. Have the rebels been so much oppressed by Mr. Lincoln before his inauguration that rebellion is justified? But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Now point out the long train of abuses the rebels have suffered in the hands of the government. For 30 years they have lived under rulers of their own election and laws of their own making. For 30 years they have controlled the affairs of the government. For 30 years they have had their fingers in the public crib, and now they are constitutionally denied these privileges for the term of 4 years by the people. They rebel and take up arms to fight their way to power again. They want to keep their hands on the treasury. They cannot submit to be deprived of the privilege of taking pap from Washington. They know that the command, "Thou shalt earn thy bread by the sweat of thy face," is especially applicable to the federal functionaries. For these, Mr. Lawyer, you seem to keep manufactured a barrel of tears to flow at a moment's warning. Ah, think of Washington and don't be a baby. Come on the side of courage. Come out on the side of your country. Come out on the side of Union and Constitution. Come out on the side which shines bright with national honor. Come out where the rays of the stars of liberty will fall upon you while you swear to protect the symbol of freedom from the ruthless touch of unworthy hands. Stop mouthing and puking because of the horrors of war. Get some physician to put a mustard plaster on your stomach and settle its uprising when you hear of the victorious march of the federal troops. Make up your mind at once that the only compromise now is a perfect execution of the constitutional law, a complete subjugation of rebel traitors. Do this soon, for the strong hand of Uncle Sam may close in the seat of your britches and hold you up amid the curses and indignation of your countrymen as an object of everlasting ridicule and disgrace. Senex, Mount Pulaski, June 10, 1861. So Senex, whoever he was, because we don't have his actual name, and he didn't name the attorney, and he didn't name the farmer, so we don't know who these folks were, but they were here. But I did look up Senex, find out what that actually referred to, and it was just referring to an older person with wisdom. Senex is trying to tell us he's an older person, and he's trying to share his wisdom with us. That's the only thing I wanted to do today, was get through that. But if you listen to it carefully, it sounds a whole lot like today, doesn't it? We'll see you on the next video.